I call the July 25th, 2018 Toxics Board meeting to order.
At 3:45.
At 3:45 p.m. Any questions about the agenda? Or any changes or anything in discussion? Should we, I move that we approve the agenda as is?
Second.
All in favor? Yay.
Yay!
Which I think takes us to you doing the staff report, correct?
Yes, except that you just need to know we have no one here for public comment.
Yes, we have nobody here for public comment, so that solves that.
Alrighty, I'm gonna just close this door real quick. Alright. Alright, so this is the staff report, which is one of the first parts of the Toxics Board meeting. And I just kind of quickly run through the titles of all the information I sent out to all of you since the last meeting. And we can, at the end, I'll just ask if anybody has any questions.
Do we want to introduce ourselves for the,
Yes, thank you.
Mark Kruger, industry representative.
Todd Egan, industry.
Nicole Patterson, community advocate.
And Joe Epley, staff. Thanks, Mark.
Sorry for the immersion.
Yeah, no problem. So I'll just quickly run through the titles of everything that I sent out to you. If you have any questions, just raise your hand or something, make it obvious, and I'll stop. And this is, the purpose of this is just to kind of get our brains all in the same place and in gear for what's been going on since the last meeting and in preparation for whatever the topics are going to be at hand today. All right. So first I sent out final approved agenda, notification to you that it was posted on the website. At the last Toxics Board meeting, we had a discussion on what has been done so far on our increased public outreach piece. And so there was an email as a follow-up to that I sent out to all of you. And Don and Nicole, if there's some of these that you might not have seen, I can definitely send them to you if you want to note them down, or I will send them again when they become an actual topic at a future agenda, future Topics Board meeting. The request to speak form and public comment form that we now have updated of our very own, exciting stuff. The last Toxics Board meeting summary. Notification that the video for the last meeting was posted on the website. Results of the annual federal regulatory chemical list and state laws review. Another update on the upcoming Toxics Board chair and vice chair rotation. Annual recruitment process update, which before you popped in, Nicole, I was mentioning to Mark and Don that I checked out with the city manager's office, and as of yesterday, we have had no one apply.
Okay. For that, is it an additional industry position?
Yeah, so for the third industry position. So after we finish the topics that are on the agenda, I just want to ask all of you kind of what our next steps are going to be on that one. Website analytics report through June 30. Sent that out. Numbers so far this year, I think, are a little bit higher than last year. Toxics Board industry position, one update from before extending the recruitment process. Yay, got a digitized version of the map. So felt successful in that, and we will be talking about that at a future Toxics Board meeting. proposal from Evan on a future agenda item topic for the Toxics Board to consider. And he will be looking into that a little bit more and providing us with additional information. Annual recruitment process update, council appointments and reappointments. So welcome Dawn and Bill. Congratulations Evan when you watch the video. Another update, Toxics Board Chair and Vice Chair. News release about our member appointments. That is it for staff tasks. Alrighty. That's it for staff report. I said that's it for staff report.
Okay.
So shall we go on to the next topic?
Any questions, comments?
Not yet.
Please.
Okay, so we like to kind of refresh everybody's memory and really help try to, as part of the onboarding process for our new members, get everybody's brain on the same page with what being a Toxics Board member is all about, the purpose, the responsibilities, and kind of a quick review of the laws that are attached to it. So we have quite a bit of information. I will talk quickly, reading some of it so that I just don't miss any of the points. But hopefully this will help answer any additional questions I had since meeting with you two individually to provide the initial overview. So I'd like to start by answering the question, why are all of you here? And the main purpose of the Toxics Board is to provide policy recommendations to the mayor and the city council on the Toxics program. And that authorization is provided to you in the Eugene Charter, which also provides you with a list of responsibilities. And I extracted those specific to the Toxics Board that are shown in the charter, some of which we don't really spend on any time currently, and I'll point those out as we go along. So for example, the first one talks about that the Toxics Board will provide forms for businesses to report their hazardous substances, and if we were to have businesses with trade secret chemicals, we now have an online reporting system, so the Toxics Board nor I spend any time on doing this at all these days. On an annual basis, the Toxics Board recommends a fee, which ends up as an ordinance to the mayor and the city council. And we really start talking about that in November, take us through December, and then a meeting or two in January, where in February I go on your behalf to city council first for a public hearing, and then usually for a separate meeting for them to take action on what ends up being the ordinance. And under section B, number 2, this is more about establishing qualifications for independent auditors, which is something else the Toxics Board would need to do if we had the situation where one of the businesses in the program would report trade secret chemicals. But we currently don't have any. In the early days of the program, Pepsi-Cola manufacturing was in Eugene city limits and in the program. So that's kind of how the language ended up in there. And as you know, the charter language stays the same until it goes back out for a vote of the public. So it's just in there in case we have the situation again in the future. The third item under B is filing a public report on the program. And that is our annual report where we provide a recap of everything that happened with the program over the course of the last calendar year, providing some basic composite data, as well as information on website visits. And there's a whole section which we spend a good chunk of time at one of our meetings in November, December, or January with the Toxics Board developing the section about how effective the program is, some considerations or suggestions for improvement for the City Council for the future of the program. We submit the annual report to the Mayor and City Council before we submit the fee recommendation, because it just kind of reminds them about the program, gets their brain kind of thinking and, some of the decisions they need to make, starting with the fee recommendation, which we kind of allude to coming up. So, for those of you who don't remember, hazardous substance reports are due by April 1st, midnight every year. And as a follow-up to that, those businesses who don't meet that deadline, I bring the names of those businesses to the Toxics Board, who then reports to the fire marshal. And then as a second piece to that, the Toxics Board needs to direct me to publish the names of those businesses, non-compliant businesses, in the newspaper. And as well, the city fire marshal investigates all evidence of non-compliant businesses with submitting the hazardous substance reports as well. The Office of the City Fire Marshal also audits the accuracy of the hazardous substance reports, and I'm the staff person that takes care of that. Reports are audited once every 3 years in a random order, and then businesses have 30 days to respond to any items of discrepancy that are found.
So does that include like a site visit or?
Not always, and I'll talk about that.
Maybe like a discrepancy between inputs and outputs?
Yes,
Okay.
of the data.
Okay.
So audits consist mostly this day of the hazardous substance data and looking for compliance with materials balance account levels. Again, a little bit later, I'll talk in more detail what they look like today and what the Toxics Board has been talking about recently on audits. So in any of these circumstances, whether it's not responding to an audit in time, not submitting hazardous substance materials reports on time, and in the rare occasion we have a business who's not cooperating and providing information in a timely manner when we've newly identified them as meeting the requirements to be in the program. All of these steps are taken to involve the fire marshal, further investigation, publish the names, as well as the business could incur fines, and as well as go into a civil penalties process, kind of just depending on the circumstance. So that is that. And G and H are more on the independent auditors, really dealing with businesses that have trade secret chemicals, which we don't currently have. But when we do have that situation, the Toxics Board needs to certify the qualifications of those independent auditors, and then hazardous substance users can only use independent auditors that have been certified by the board.
Okay.
So those are your responsibilities outlined in the charter. Next, talk a little bit more about the chair rotation. And this is just something that comes up every year, so good things to remember. Every July 1st, the chair rotates to a different person. We always follow the rule that not both the chair and the vice chair cannot both be advocacy and cannot both be industry at the same time. It needs to be one of each or one of the other, with the neutral member serving in between. And we do have an official rotation order of advocacy, industry, and neutral, but in reality it doesn't follow that. It's more so whoever's been on the board the longest, and with the neutral member serving in between. And why I talk about this and bring up chair information so often is, as Mark can attest to, you never know how soon your name's going to come up to serve as the chair. So get familiar with the role, what the role is about, observe how it's handled, and let me know if you have any questions. I'm here to help you. So currently we have Mark Kruger as the chair and Evan Shankin as the vice chair, and that takes us through June 30, 2019. And then on July 1st, 2019, Evan bumps up to the chair position, and Andre comes back again to serve as our vice chair, which I think she's done a few times already. Any questions on that?
Point out how quickly things can change. I was the industry representative, the junior one here, and then so if you look at the rotation sequence, I'll have filled out my 3 years without ever getting to this position. And then I think in a matter of weeks or a month or two, both of the other industry positions were vacated. They withdrew to go to another job or I forgot what other purpose, which then launched me from being the junior person to being the senior most industry representative. And here.
So a very excellent reference document for all of you to have on hand and refer to from time to time, at least once a year, is the City of Eugene Advisory Group's member and staff manual. And I extracted information specific to being a Toxics Board member, information from pages 8, 9, and 11. Continuing more information on the chair, just really talking about the role, the primary role of the chair is to preside over the meeting, to maintain order and decorum at all times, and provide a fair and impartial platform for everybody to get the opportunity to weigh in, say what they have to say on the matter at hand, and just really helping everyone stay on time and on track. So, just in case we have a situation where the chair is unable to be here or unable to act as chair, then the vice chair would automatically bump up into that role for that meeting. And if for some reason neither the chair nor the vice chair were here, then any members that were in attendance would need to vote to elect a temporary chair for that meeting. Very important reminder that no Toxics Board member can represent the board unless it has been previously authorized by the board in an official capacity. You can, of course, represent yourself, but you must make it clear that you're appearing in a private capacity and not as an official representative of the board. On a similar note, official city stationery can only be used for communications that have been authorized by the board. So from the Toxics Board comes the annual report to the mayor and the city council and the public, as well as fee recommendations through the document that's called the agenda item summary. Most communications are facilitated on your behalf through me, as approved by the board, of course. Each committee member also has the obligation to work cooperatively with everyone. Just always remember to be respectful, objective, and fair, and take your own full responsibility for helping keep your own parts of the discussion on track and on time. Yes, the chair will help us if need be, but it works better if everybody does their part. Absences, today is not the best example, but I need all of you here all the time as much as possible. It's part of your responsibility as a board member. Because besides the first meeting of every fiscal year, we only meet when the Toxics Board has to vote on items, and we cannot do that without at least 4 of you here. If you're not here, you're not being an active member, and that doesn't really benefit anyone. And just to point a few things out, there's no distinction between excused and unexcused absences. So if for some reason a member misses more than 3 consecutive meetings, the regular meetings, then it is likely you will be asked to resign from your position on the board. But if you do need to be absent, just please let me know as quickly as possible. Even if you're running late, just know to. And if for some reason any of you need to resign, just please let us know as soon as possible, because it takes a little bit too long sometimes to fill any vacancies on the board. And we like to keep the board as full and balanced as much as possible. Any questions on that?
Sorry, what was the name?
Oh, it's okay. We're pointing any fingers. So another very, very important topic, and it is a tricky one, is Oregon Public Meetings Law. And the quick reference guide that I provided in your information packet for today's meeting, as well as your orientation packet, is just very well done. It's written in simple language to understand and really reviews all the important points that we need to remember. And today I'm just going to review a couple of them. Telephone conversations, conference calls, emails, texts can be perceived as public meetings. And if we're having a public meeting, AKA taking care of any board or program business, we need to give the public notice, we need to have a public record. Otherwise, we could be found in willful violation of public meetings laws. And not only could we financially be liable as a group and individuals, but any decision that was made based upon any of those discussions would be null and void at that point. So we would have to go back and start from scratch. So just, always remember, let's work together to operate openly and transparently. Keep myself and the chair in the loop. If you want to talk about something, try to save it for a regularly scheduled meeting, or if it's more urgent, we can schedule something in between. Okay. So I highly recommend you read through that document if you haven't done so already. Any questions? Eugene City Council operating agreements and Eugene Code section 2.015. I did not extract any information from Eugene City Council operating agreements to review with you today. It's a little bit lengthy, but read through that document and try your best to understand how things operate up at the City Council level, because that's really what details out in there, including their processes for everything. And why it's important for Toxics Board members to understand this is because, remember, you are the recommending body for the Toxics program to the mayor of the City Council, who's the decision body. And the more you can understand about how they operate when things get up to their level, the better we can prepare our information and just help be efficient and effective as possible. So I highly encourage you to read through that one. If you have any questions, just shoot me an email, and then I can respond to the whole group, and then everybody can learn even more. Eugene Code section 2.015 really is more about order and decorum and meetings, and specifically talking about if we were to have a situation with a disruptive person at a meeting, whether it was a member of the public, somebody who moseyed down the hall who shouldn't be in here, possibly even a Toxics Board member. These are just things that we need to kind of have in our mind in case the situation arises and how we're going to handle it. So again, starting with the chair, the presiding officer shall be responsible for ensuring that order and decorum are maintained at all meetings. Any of the following shall be sufficient cause for the removal of any person from the meeting for the duration of the meeting. The use of unreasonably loud or disruptive language, the making of loud or disruptive noise, the engaging in violent or distracting action, the willful injury of furnishings or of the interior of the meeting room, the refusal to obey any of the rules of conduct provided within this section, including the limitation on occupancy and seating capacity, the refusal to obey an order of the presiding officer. Before removal of any person from the meeting for conduct described in subsection 3, which is what I just read, that person shall be given a warning by the presiding officer to cease the conduct. If a meeting is disrupted by members of the audience, the preceding officer or a majority of the board present may order that the meeting will be cleared. Unreasonably loud or disruptive language, noise, or conduct is that which obstructs the work of the conducting of the business of the board. No flags, posters, placards, or signs unless authorized by the presiding officer may be carried or placed within the meeting room in which the board is officially meeting. Now, with all that being said, the city attorney has advised that it is rare that anyone is removed from the meeting, but the situation could happen. So we need to kind of think about this. Usually it's just enough if the person has been disruptive and they've been warned by the chair that they need to cease the conduct, and then they continue, then either the chair or majority vote of the board asks for a recess, everybody clears the room, goes out, cools down, calms down their emotions, comes back ready to be professional and courteous, and then the meeting is reinstituted as called to order. So that's usually as far as it goes even at city council meetings. But if it would ever go further, we would do all of these things, and then we would call 911, and until they responded, I would go down the hall and find a fire or a police management person to come that?
It's, it hasn't occurred in the memory of the board, correct? And that did.
No.
So it's contingency.
Yes. Yes. All right, next I'm going to review toxic board procedures, Robert's Rules of Order, and toxic board meeting formalities. Quickly scroll through Board of Public Meetings Law, Quick Reference Guide, City Council Operating Agreements, Eugene Code 2.015. There's a yellow highlight in there. I tried to remove it and I couldn't, so sorry, this has to stay. So the Eugene Toxic Board procedures were created by the original chair of the original board because he really wanted to have written procedures for the operations of the board that he didn't feel were necessarily specified in the members and staff manual at that time. So how this works is that each year the new chair takes a review of these and sees if they have any recommendations for changes and then brings that to the board. So I can't remember if I mentioned that to you or not. And then earlier this year, it was actually updated in April because the city attorney had reviewed it as part of an information packet for a different situation for us, and noticed that we previously had language in there that seemed to allow for absenteeism voting, which is not allowed under public meetings law. So she highly recommended we review it and consider removing that language, which the Toxics Board did. So these are the procedures as they stand today. If a vote is taken on any matter, a simple majority rules. An abstention does not count as a no vote, and a simple majority of the votes cast is necessary for any decision. In the event that a member of the Toxics Board is unable to attend a meeting, that Toxics Board member may participate via conference call. And that's pretty much the only exception for participating, but not being physically here. A quorum of the Toxics Board consists of 4 members present at a meeting. A quorum of the Toxics Board needs to be present in order to conduct official business of the board. The agenda for each subsequent meeting is produced first by the Toxics Board chair and then modified or changed by the Toxics Board at the current meeting. The agenda for each upcoming meeting is circulated 7 days prior to that meeting. Any Toxics Board member may submit materials to the Toxics Board, with submitting the materials through me 10 days prior to the Toxics Board meeting, or bring 10 copies to the meeting. Questions for the city attorney must first be brought to the Toxics Board, and then the Toxics Board, by a majority vote, may submit questions to the city attorney through, again, me. Any questions on that? Okay, Robert's Rules of Order. Conduct at meetings, for city council meetings and committee meetings, such as the Toxics Board, are outlined in Robert's Rules of Order, which are based in parliamentary procedure, which is written a little bit in archaic language, which can be sometimes confusing. So it is used more as a guideline to how to conduct efficient, effective, and orderly meetings. So this is another document. It is official procedure, so review it and become familiar with it. But we don't just know that we don't necessarily follow it to a T, to the point where it ends up kind of creating barriers because we don't understand what this means. And a few years ago, I created this Toxics Board members formalities, which is really a little cheat sheet about when the official things and the way they need to be said at Toxics Board meetings. Starting with mostly a reminder that Toxics Board meetings are public meetings, so we need to have a public record. And for a really long time, the City of Eugene organization, and for all boards and commissions, we had verbatim written minutes, which were taken by a city reporter, which is a very expensive service. So the executive management team always looking for ways to trim down operating costs, and made it a city policy that we were going to move to videotaping meetings. So that's why you will see a camera at all the meetings. Just in case that doesn't work, I always have a voice recorder on the table to record the audio as a backup. And then just more for a quick reference, in case we need to come back and remember what was going on at the meeting. I type of a meeting summary, just giving note of all the important points, where we met, when we met, who was here, who was absent, if we had members of the public, when the meeting started, when it ended, and a summary of the bigger discussions and details on motions and votes. And I do send those out to you as soon as I can get to them after the Toxics Board meeting. Really with the hope that you guys will review them, and if I missed anything or you feel that there's an important point that should be added in for future reference, please don't hesitate to email that back to me, and I can always change it, because then that will be kind of our backup official record. So the first thing that happens is that the chair calls the meeting to order, just like Mark did. I called, for example, July 24th Toxics Board meeting to order. When a Toxics Board member wants to speak at a meeting, this is even before the voting, you just raise your hand and then the chair will call you in the order that you did raise your hand. Then when we do come to the time of voting on the topics, any Toxics Board member other than the chair can make the motion by saying, for example, I move to recommend a fee of $56.08 for FTE to the City Council. And then a different Toxics Board member has to second the motion by saying second, or I second the motion. And then the chair states, all those in favor say aye, and pauses. And all those in opposition say aye, and pauses. And then the chair asks if anybody wants to discuss the matter. And then the chair states whether or not the motion passes or fails, and ideally repeats the motion for the official record. And it's okay if we don't do it exactly every time, but just if we can remember, that would be great. And if there's a split vote, the chair also then adds a statement about how many members voted in favor of the motion, and how many members voted in opposition. The majority of the Toxics Board members must vote in favor of the motion in order for it to pass. Now, even though a motion has been made, you might have a different idea of what you would like to recommend. So then you can raise your hand and propose an amended motion. For example, I move to amend a motion and recommend a fee of $50 per FTE to City Council instead of the $56 that was originally proposed. And then follow the remaining steps listed above under making the motion. And again, the majority of Toxics Board members must vote in favor of the amended motion in order for it to pass. All right, and then after the meeting's done, the chair officially closes the meeting by saying, meeting is adjourned. Does anybody have any questions?
No.
Excellent. All right, so going on to the second topic of today's agenda, work plan priorities review. So first I'm going to reference my cover email to all of you, just starting with the reminder that the work plan is connected to the fee recommendation, which is connected to the budget, and all of these things, in addition to the annual report, we spend November, December, and January talking about a lot. And so I thought it would be a good idea to review the approved work plan with you, because the last time, even those board members who were on the board at the time, last time we talked about it was in January. So, a lot's happened in between that time. And another thing that happened in this year's fee, budget, and work plan discussion was that, taking us back to the previous fiscal year, a line item for $5,000 was allocated to support IT work to really improve and enhance the reporting program for reporting hazardous substances. And in this fiscal year's work plan, budget, and fee discussion, it was decided to remove that $5,000 additional line item, and instead allowing to bump up more of my time to help the Toxics Board work on these special project-focused work areas. So the three areas are implementing a comprehensive audit process for businesses currently in the program to ensure accuracy of reporting hazardous substance use and reporting full-time equivalent employee levels, continuing to identify businesses that meet the program requirements, improving outreach to the public, and businesses that report under the program. And then here we have the approved work plan. And just to refresh everybody's memory of how this is laid out, and get Dawn and Nicole a little bit more familiar, since this is kind of new to you. We created a work plan kind of in a chart format, showing the connection to the mandates in the charter. Because all of the work we do, a lot of the work we do is based in the charter, which in conjunction with Eugene Code are the two primary laws that govern the program. So we kind of use them as our guide. And then in the middle column are staff tasks shown where on somewhat of a high summary level, I show the tasks that I do to meet those charter mandates. And in the far right column is the approximate percentage of staff time I spend doing that work. You will notice that some of the percentage of staff time are shown as 0. And those are in circumstances where, like on this first one, none of us, myself or any of you, spend any time creating, collecting forms so that people can report their hazardous substances. We have an electronic system that takes care of that for us. So that stop time, just being open and transparent, is 0. But we note the reason why it is 0 here in the staff task column. And one more thing, so on pages 1, 2, and the first half of 3, we have specific individual charter mandates. But then there's additional staff tasks I do that the topics board felt was important for me to continue, that really were in support of all of the charter mandates, but nothing individually and specific. So we called that second section in the work plan chart necessary to support the charter amendment mandates. So you will see on page 1, we have no updates to staff tasks or percentage of staff time. Charter language will not change until and if it is gone back out for a vote of the public. On page 2, we have 2 sections with increased staff time. The first one on audits. I'm going to jump down to the bottom here to show on the bottom of page 5 and for all of page 6. Providing the Toxics Board with a quick reference for our future discussions on audits and creating that more comprehensive process. The definition of audits as shown in the hazardous substance tracking instructions, as well as the procedure that I inherited that was established back in 2002, which I still use today. So it kind of talks about how things were in the first couple of cycles and then how it would go afterwards. And again, just to more expand on the answer to your original question, Nicole, audits currently consist of what we call desk audits, where I print out the data for the years that have not previously been audited and look mostly for compliance with materials balance and accounting rules, which are summarized down here at the bottom of page 6. I do, when we newly identify a business, I do a site audit as part of the orientation. If we have a business that either has been newly identified or is in the program or their name has been brought forward as they should be in the program, all kind of connecting on possible issues of non-compliance, then we get the fire marshal involved and then they send me out with the deputy and do like a full site audit at that point. But on a regular basis, site audits are not really part of the process currently. So what the Toxics Board has been talking about in terms of enhancing this piece is really looking at data reported under other programs, just to kind of see, does it seem like these people understand what's supposed to be going on here, and looking for discrepancies. And so the programs are Oregon State Fire Marshals, Community Right to Know program, possibly El Rapa, possibly Eugene Stormwater Wastewater program reports, possibly even Eugene Springfield Fire Hazardous Materials program, the information that's submitted for permits. So that's what's been talked about before. Not really any decisions made, but this is going to be one of our focus extra project work areas this year. And so the Toxics Board agreed to increase my staff time on this from 7% to 9%.
So is that to decrease redundancy, so that your, the reports are streamlining, or?
More so to try to, with a goal
Or-
of increasing accuracy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
Qualifications, so if,
Mhm.
it's on our report, let's say I don't report acetone,
Right.
and they look at the RAPA report, and I have an acetone limit of, what is it, 9 tons per year.
Mhm.
Well, why am I being permitted 9, and I don't have any on site?
Right.
Maybe we should start asking questions.
Yeah.
Is that a
So
reasonable-
consistency.
Have you seen that?
Some have, not specifically with acetone, but.
No, I just mean, say, on, say your state fire marshal report and your report, they're just not balanced, say 2,000 pounds of this, and another report says 5,000 pounds.
It was brought to my attention, I think it was between the wastewater or stormwater report for one company. They were reporting like tons and tons of pounds of chemicals on one, and then under the Eugene Toxic Regulation program, it was like 2 pounds or something like that. So that's kind of what brought the topic up. So that would be an easy and good collaborative piece to do. So we'll be doing some more work on that. And then the second item here on page 2 in the charter, it talks about the annual fee, and some of my work connected to that is about the reported FTE, where we gather the information and then I put it in different formats to bring to you as part of the fee recommendation, discussion and decision piece. But really, the full-time equivalent reporting is pretty much a honor system. So the Toxics Board has been talking about ways we can also do some cross-referencing to verify accuracy of full-time equivalent employees.
So I was talking with our HR folks, and there is a Lane County transit tax, which is a per person working in Lane County, the company has to pay. Whether you can get access to that information, it was beyond the scope of them, so that may be something you can dig into. And that doesn't answer the second question, which is, of course, I think we're at facilities where we count people at the facilities where the material is, right? It's the, what was it, Falling Sky, right?
Yes.
Where they count the people at the brewery,
Right.
but not the people at the restaurant, because the restaurant doesn't fall into the SIS, it's not an industrial process, right? The restaurant's a commercial enterprise. So while they may have a lot of employees, only a few work at the brewery, so that changes the, or the two numbers don't have to agree. But it does, like, for example, I report everybody in our company that's in Eugene just because it won't matter.
Yeah, so two other things besides the transit tax. Mark had brought that up at the last meeting and said he was going to look into it a little more. The two things that have been brought up and looked into so far is me asking for access, what's reported to the IRS through quarterly payroll reports, because there is a number of employees component to that, as well as the federal OSHA is implementing a transparency type initiative, and information from their 300A reports, the injury and illness, obviously not the HIPAA protected parts, but things like number of employees will be eventually become available to the public. However, in talking to them, they don't have a timeline for when the information will be public, but it is part of the future plan.
Keeps getting pushed back.
It seems like you know about that too. So again, for the Toxics program, we have a very specific calculation for what full-time equivalent employee means, including some of the things that Mark was talking about. So it wouldn't necessarily be an exact match, but some of these venues could be a good cross-reference piece, just to kind of do a little double checking and not have a complete open honor system. On page 3, we have no updates to staff tasks or percentage of staff time, but here is where we start merging into the necessary to support charter mandate tasks. On page 4, we have 2 sections with increase in staff time and 1 decrease. The first increase in staff time on this page is really about the website. So the Toxics Board has been talking most recently about maybe adding more reference documents on there to help people understand the program a little bit more. Currently, the only reference document we have on there is the Eugene Code, but a couple of suggestions that have been brought up is what's on there is the charter. An additional document could be like the code, possibly when we update our annual report, refreshing that every year. Things like that. And then it hasn't really been on the future agenda items list, but it has been talked about kind of on and off over the years, really looking at the part of the website that displays the data, hazardous substance data pages, and looking at that to see if we can do that in a little bit more user-friendly manner. And neither one of those would really take, it would take a little bit of my time more than it does now, but not really much more because the platform that the City of Eugene has for maintaining content on the website is really user-friendly. So to add content, remove it, change it, add documents, really wouldn't take much of my time at all. The biggest piece would be here at the Toxics Board meeting, while you guys decide what that would look like. For the web page that displays the hazardous substance data, that would be need to be submitted to IT as to help us update that piece, because that's like managed in code language, which is beyond my technical capabilities. But it would not be so much that we needed to submit extra money to make that happen, because the Toxics Board, in our budget, we have a line item that's called a central services fee that we pay, and it covers expenses for central finance, for the fire department, for the fire marshal's office, for IT, to help us kind of maintain and do our regular work. So on that piece, my time and effort would really be in submitting the request if the Toxics Board decided that's something we wanted to do, and then kind of bird dogging it to make sure that it happened. So again, not a whole lot of extra bit of my time. So the extra 1% should be sufficient. The next set of tasks for increased staff time are public education and outreach efforts, increasing those. Our primary point of outreach right now is the website, which is probably a good reason for us to take a peek at it from time to time. And then in my daily work, both within the City of Eugene and Springfield organizations, out in the public, working with businesses, whether it's on reporting or audits, when I newly identify them, I take every opportunity to help increase transparency, awareness, and an understanding of the program. But there's still a lot more that can be done. So some of the things the Toxics Board has been talking about recently is maybe getting the board more involved in some of the outreach pieces. One thing that's happened so far is that one of our former members drafted up like a memo from the board to the reporting businesses talking about increased accuracy in reporting. Maybe putting some additional information on our website, like me doing some how-to videos, how to do reporting, how to calculate your FTE, stuff like that. Maybe even hosting an open forum, work sessions where we would invite the public in, business community, and just have them learn basics of the program, ask questions, maybe give us ideas for improvement. So just stuff like that. And again, these are just areas that the Toxics Board has talked about, kind of doing some increased focus work on. We may not get to all of them. We may get to all of them, and we may also get derailed with something that we don't know is in our future, and not get to any of them. But for right now, this is our plan. And then this collaborate with other city staff and community organizations. It's an important component of my job, and for me personally, it's just something I naturally do as part of my day-to-day work. So it was important enough to still leave here on the work plan to say that that is an important part of this job, but we really needed as much time to allocate to the other sections as possible. So we still 1% from here and moved it on onto the other sections. And then the last final few pieces of the work plan chart had no changes. And that is my presentation on the work plan.
So I did a quick calculator back in the envelope, and 1% I think is about 21 hours. So just to give you an idea, over the course of a year, 1% is 20-some hours.
I can do a lot with that. All right, so that's all I had for you guys.
And so my comment to this is a program in the Eugene Charter, which means that there are parts of it that we cannot change in the least, unless it's a public vote. And I think a lot of things that people would like to change, both from an industry standpoint and from an community advocacy standpoint, are things where we just run straight into that. Like, we'd love to be rats. Both in terms of things like funding, reporting methodologies and limitations, things like that. We just can't.
But we can recommend a vote to the city council.
I believe that would be to the city council, or would it have to go to the public for a vote?
It could come first as a recommendation from the Toxics Board for city council to consider doing that, and then they would need to vote to give that direction that, yes, we're ready to do this. So yeah, there's lots of different things that the Toxics Board can recommend. So everything from a recommendation of appointing a new member to obviously the fee recommendation, but up to and including legislation, as well as changes to any of the laws, proposed changes to any of the laws that are connected to our program, like the charter.
So I believe that takes us pretty much to the end of the list of things we're going to do at the meeting. Is there anything you guys want to bring up? Questions, things we want to talk about? Remember, we can't really do much because we don't have a quorum at this point, but
Right.
sort of a chance to chat, I guess.
I have a question.
Well, you can always, if you remember later, just email Jo, and her response will go out to everybody, so
Okay.
it's clear to everybody what the question is. If there's anything else anybody needs to bring up, the meeting's adjourned.
Fantastic.
Okay.
Thanks, everyone.